I was really nervous and afraid before we, went to LA and went to this whole premiere and everything. And I was like, what if we don't like this show? Like, that would just sting. That would just be like, yeah, it was great. But I'm so glad to report that we loved this show. Like, we had such a good time with it.
Hello and welcome to the movie podcast review of The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. My name is Daniel. I am one of your hosts today, and joining alongside me are my fellow men of Middle-earth, Shahbaz.
Hello.
And Anthony.
I'm an elf. Just letting you know. I'm an elf. Okay.
That is, you know what? Anthony's actually quoting a classic Tolkien line. This is actually one from the Silmarillion that's often overlooked, where he's like, "I'm an elf." Okay,
It's usually,
just want to make sure.
It's usually said at a higher pitch, though. I believe, like, I'm an elf.
It's
De
Niro's
Santa Claus elf.
De Niro's elf. Yeah, I'm an elf.
Oh, yeah.
I'm an elf. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm an elf. This has been a long time coming. This show is one that was announced all the way back in our first year of doing the movie podcast, and now here we are 3 years later, 3 years wiser. Of course, that is just a blink of an eye in the life of an elf like Anthony. But here we are, finally able to talk about The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. This is pretty amazing. Shay, how are you feeling right now?
It does feel like a long time coming, because you think about this show and where we were with our show, and the fact that we got to go to the premiere of the show as well. Like, everything kind of just feels like it's setting in right now for me. And what's great about it is that we can talk really positively about this show. Obviously, there's no spoilers as to what our review is going to be.
You just spoiled our review, though. That it's going to be a positive review.
Positively a bad show. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, wow. No.
No, not at all. No, I can't wait to talk about it, because there's just so much about this show that we can dissect, and we've only seen the first 2 episodes right now. So there's so much more that we want to kind of go into, but I'm very excited. Like, this was an unreal experience, and getting to see, knowing that Lord of the Rings is one of our favorite, trilogies and series, and we've all read the books and we've all watched the movies. So to get to this point is huge, I'd say.
Yeah, you're so right. And of course, Shay is alluding to the fact that we did attend the Hollywood premiere of The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, which was at the time of you listening to this was a couple of weeks ago now, which is crazy to think how fast time has gone by. We were also very lucky. We have an interview series that just went up on the movie podcast feed and on YouTube. So if you've been watching all of our coverage this week, thank you so much. We've been having a lot of fun, and we've been working really hard on putting everything together, between making the videos and the graphics and everything. It's been a lot of work on our end, but we really wanted to make sure that the rollout for the show was special. So here we are now at the finale. We are at the finish line. All of our interview series episodes are out. You could go check them out if you want to hear from the cast of the show, if you want to hear about the creators behind it. Go check it out. We have a 3-part interview series up right now. Now, Anthony, how are you feeling right now? How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm just excited to be able to talk about this show for the first time. Yeah. Right? We've been in Khazad-dûm for the past couple of months, or a month and a half. So it's nice to be able to express how we feel about the show, and it is a long time coming. And to hear about where this show started and where it is, it's phenomenal, because you would read about all these things that Amazon was doing with Lord of the Rings, but you really didn't know what it looked like, and you didn't know what it felt like, and all you can kind of rely on is Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings, and that was your foundation. So this is the first time we're able to get different creators, different we'll say a different vision for this world, but be in the same Tolkien universe. So it's exciting to talk about, and can't wait to kind of go into it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think for all of us, we've been able to talk about it with each other, but now we get to talk about it with you. You listening to this episode, you watching this episode right now. This show's going to be massive, and I can't wait for all of us to be able to talk about it, share what we love, share what our thoughts are, share our predictions where this is going to be going, and of course, as always, you could catch a brand new episode of the Movie Podcast every single Monday, and watch out throughout the week for our review episodes, our interviews and reviews on all the latest movies and series. If you want to keep this conversation going after this review, make sure you're joining our Discord. We have a great Discord channel that we're going to be talking about the show. We're talking about She-Hulk. We're talking about everything that we're watching, everything that's going on. So that's a great spot for you to continue the conversation, take things, out of the episodes, and let's keep talking about it. That we'd love for that. Also, we'd love for you to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Letterboxd at The Movie Podcast. We are making a lot of great posts there, a lot of great videos. I don't like the word content, but there's so much content out there for us, for you to engage with and for you to check it out. If you want to see how our trip was to LA, if you want to know what the premiere was like, and of course, if you want to see all of the footage from our interviews, we're making great little shorts and reels and, and goo gadgets and whatnots and all whatever the kids are calling these.
Is that an Elvish term? I believe goo gadgets.
Goo gadgets. Yeah, I think it's Elvish or it's Dr. Seuss. I'm not too sure. Okay. It's one of them. It's very similar text to adapt for sure. But just make sure you're following us on all of our socials. You don't want to miss anything that we have going on. It's a very busy time here because Fan Expo's wrapping up. We're at TIFF as well. The Last of Us Part 2 remake is coming out on PS5. There are so many amazing things that we're going to be talking about on this channel. And we love doing this. And I think that's the biggest part. So we want to have a great community that we could all share what we love and focus on the positivity always. So make sure, if that sounds good to you, please make sure you're following us at The Movie Podcast. You could also follow us. Check out our show notes for all of those links and more. But today, of course, is all about The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. This series is going to be premiering on Prime Video. For the first 2 episodes, it's actually premiering at 9 p.m. on September 1st. So they are doing a special premiere. After that, it will be a new episode weekly. And I want to say a huge, huge, huge Middle Earth-sized thank you to our friends at Prime Video for trusting us for watching the series, for making us sign all the NDAs so we don't spoil anything, and for letting us, come along and do some really amazing stuff in LA with the press junkets and, watching this series. So definitely huge shout out to them. And let's get right into it. Anthony, please start us off with a synopsis for The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power.
Prime Video's The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power brings to screens for the very first time the heroic legends of the fabled second age of Middle-earth's history. This epic drama is set thousands of years before the events of J.R.R. Tolkien's The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, and will take viewers back to an era in which great powers were forged, kingdoms rose to glory and fell to ruin, unlikely heroes were tested, hope hung by the finest of threads, and the greatest villain that ever flowed from Tolkien's pen threatened to cover all the world in darkness.
I love it. The worlds of J.R.R. Tolkien are just massive. So I think the best way to be able to explore them is in this series. And we know this first season is going to be 8 episodes long. You're getting 2 episodes right out the gate. And they do cover a lot of groundwork to establish what's going to be coming next. So Shay, finally, start us off. Tell us what you thought of the first 2 episodes of The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. And of course, this will be spoiler free.
I was really nervous and afraid before we, went to LA and went to this whole premiere and everything. And I was like, what if we don't like this show? Like, that would just sting. That would just be like, yeah, it was great. But I'm so glad to report that we loved this show. Like, we had such a good time with it. It feels completely connected to the world that Peter Jackson already has us familiar with. This show is just epic. It's breathtaking. There's moments that I'm watching and I'm like, I can't believe this is supposed to be watched on a TV screen. Like, it's unbelievable. It's actually unbelievable. There's so many moments where I was like, is this CG? Is this practical? Where are they taking this? The budget is obvious. We know Amazon, we know Prime Video has spent almost $1 billion pretty much on this whole franchise. And each episode is about 60 million, was it?
Yeah, it was a large amount. I think
it was a large amount of money.
Around 60 per episode, which is the most expensive show of all time.
100%, and every dollar shows on the screen. There's a beautiful cast here as well, and every character so far I'm engaged with. Just like in The Lord of the Rings, we're kind of getting these multiple stories being told that obviously will eventually kind of connect right down to the middle. But each story that we're kind of passing through, I'm like, that's interesting. I like what's happening here. This is cinematic excellence. This show does it so well. It carries itself so well, and it is so damn beautiful. I felt I felt like I was back in the world that I was when I was like 10, 11 years old, watching the original films when they were coming out in theaters.
Right.
It didn't skip a beat from me. Granted, the first episode, I will say, does have some slow moments in it, but it's necessary for the story they're trying to tell. There isn't any wasted moments. It's just that to get to a certain point, it might drag on a little bit. But I can promise you that on a rewatch, or even if you watch it as a whole from like the whole show from the beginning, it makes sense. It makes up for what it's trying to do.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point because the first episode of the show, it's doing a lot, and I think the first episode, it's establishing its own worlds, it's establishing these different factions of characters, and it's establishing the fact that this is not Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings, right? And that's a lot to do. And I remember back when the Hobbit films were coming out, they carried that weight of these are films from Peter Jackson that are in his The World of Lord of the Rings, and I recently rewatched the Hobbit trilogy, and being almost a decade removed from them now, I'm like, I can appreciate what these films are doing a lot more now because you're not necessarily having those expectations of these are tied to this original trilogy. Yes, they are tied and they're connected, but they're not like leaning on them. They're not, needing them for support. They are its own stories. And I think that's what I love so much about this show is that it's establishing, 2000 years before anything that we know from this world. It's carving out its own ground. And I think that's what's so important. And, I honestly believe the show's going to redefine what's possible for television. Like you see what's being done in the show with the effects, with the visuals, the story that they're telling. It's massive. This is what defines epic. It's the Rings of Power, and it's really, really impressive. Anthony, please jump on in.
Yeah, I was speechless coming out of.
I thought you were going to say, "Yeah, guys, you're wrong. I don't get it."
No,
I'm an elf.
I'm an elf. I was speechless coming out of the screenings that we visited when we went to go watch it, and I was actually absolutely shocked that this was something that was going to be airing on TV. Like this should be on the biggest screen in the whole entire world. This is bigger than Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings, and that is like a hot take, but it is because we are dealing with an epic of characters of different from different areas that are we dealt with Lord of the Rings as a ragtag team of crew, and they kind of went on their adventure, but this is setting up the biggest battles, the biggest beasts, everything that you will see in this show is going to be bigger and grander than what we got from the Lord of the Rings or even the Hobbit. I'm absolutely in love with everything from the beginning to the last sequence of episode 2. I'm in love with it. I brought back to a time where Lord of the Rings was a huge part of my teenage life, and seeing this and kind of having the creators and the love that kind of went into that is shown in this series. They've done justice to Peter Jackson because they've taken what his vision was and they now elaborated into something far grander than what we've ever seen on screen. It's a cinematic masterpiece. There are visual effects that I couldn't tell if they were real or not. There are practical effects that they just work well with CG. Everything it just flows. The story, the characters, even the new characters. I know a lot of people will say, well, those characters were not part of Lord of the Rings. Well, you know what? Some things have to change. And, as someone who read the books, I'm okay with these characters being part of this universe. Maybe you're not, but I am. Because it just adds a little bit more. I want more from this story. I cannot rely on, what Tolkien wrote 45 years ago and even broken up because he never finished those books. His son finished those books, and it was a process that took a really long time. So it's okay for people with the right amount of heart to continue these stories. And I think it's important because if you don't, we'll forget about Lord of the Rings. We'll forget about who these characters are and what they bring to this world. So
that's so true.
Overall, my experience with this show was absolutely amazed. And for those of you who think, Game of Thrones, no disrespect to Game of Thrones, Game of Thrones is, it's very similar to the Lord of the Rings. It has a very similar look and feel and all that. but this is much, much bigger than Game of Thrones. Like, for those of you who watch and think this is amazing, you have no idea. You're gonna be out of your mind when you see this show. Absolutely, you're gonna be like blown away because everything is real. Like the landscapes, like there are green screen effects, but like this New Zealand as a location is absolutely magical for this show. They just the grand epicness of the scenic shots, it just works so well, and you're gonna learn a lot about what came before Lord of the Rings. These characters that kind of spell in. You're gonna meet characters that you've seen in Lord of the Rings. You're gonna see a young Elrond. You're gonna see a young Galadriel who is a badass. I wish we saw more of this in the Lord of the Rings, even though maybe she wasn't a badass, but I like her as a badass. She does a really
Very
good
stoic.
job. She's very stoic, but she's also
Yeah.
a stone cold killer. But yeah, it's just everything is fantastic. I don't know what else to say, but it's a masterpiece. This is 2 episodes. I don't even know all the other episodes. I could just say this on 2 episodes.
It's just downhill from here, I think. Yeah.
They spent the budget already. They spent the budget.
Yeah. No, I you know what? That's the thing. We walked out of the screening and immediately we were like, wow, like we were speechless. Like, we didn't have any words to kind of say. And I think one of the things I really want to highlight right now are all the different characters that we kind of come across in the first 2 episodes. Like you mentioned, Galadriel, we have Elrond. Elrond was the one that I think I was the most nervous with because I was like, how can someone be as good as Hugo Weaving? How can we get that gravitas? And then Robert Aramayo comes in and absolutely kills it. He brings this level of humanity to Elrond that we hadn't seen in the Peter Jackson movies, where he's right now is my favorite character that we've seen, followed by Ishmael's character, who is Arendir, who's this elf who's in love with this human, played by Nazanin Baniadi, who plays Bronwyn. And you're just kind of like, you like where this is going because you're like, oh, this is like forbidden love. But there's just so much more. There's so much depth to it, and their story is interesting. But yeah, there's so much about this, and I even loved Prince Durin, who we've heard so much about in The Hobbit and in the Lord of the Rings movies,
Right?
And now we're finally getting to kind of meet him, and it's just really, really cool because he's really fun. It's really light, and there's this level that is unbelievable, and you can't believe you're finally getting back into this world, and you're going back to this world with such respect.
One thing I want to say about Elrond, because we're so used to Hugo Weaving's Elrond, and also Elrond who's dealt with humans or men, we'll say, and dealt with the world that happened after the ring. You clearly see this young version of Elrond, so hopeful, empathetic, happy, just
charming,
just a lot of life into this character. And it's going to be it's not tragic, but there is going to be a tragicness to his character because he loses that, because we see that in the Fellowship of the Ring and the Two Towers and the Return of the King, where he's jaded and there's no trust in the world that he lives in anymore. And it's just so much hopefulness right now for him. And I think like seeing the other perspective of his character 2,000 years before what we got is amazing to see. It's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
And that's what's so fun, right? Like we get to explore these characters in times that we've never seen them before. And I always think to the people who are feel very protective of Tolkien's text. I mean, this is just an adaptation, right? This is just a series. This is a show. This is not taking away from the stories you love. This is made out of respect and for love for those stories. Right. And I think that's what's so incredible about it. When we think about the team behind the show, they're making this because they love the works that it's inspired by, and I think you see that, and you think of someone like Elrond, you think of Galadriel, and you're just like, it's so cool seeing them as younger, unsure of themselves. They have this line of duty, but also friendship. And I love the friendship that we see between Galadriel and Elrond. Right, we get to see that established in this episode. Elrond's so excited to see Galadriel, and it's almost like it feels like, is this like a friendship? Is this like a romantic thing between them? Because obviously we see them, just having watched the Hobbit films, we see them fight together and we see them talk with one another, but you don't really know much about their backstory. And obviously Tolkien is like the epitome of backstory and lore, right? So there's so much to pull from, and you could tell that they had a lot of fun and just a lot of just great ideas in telling these stories. And I think, the standouts, especially in this episode, everyone gets their moment to shine, and it's rare that that happens in a show where everyone is established from the very, very beginning. Which is pretty amazing to see that everyone gets their worlds established, everyone gets their characters established, and they all get their moments to shine. And I really, really respected that. And I think the standouts for me this episode, I loved Galadriel. Obviously, I loved Elrond. Also, I love Nori. Learning about the Harfoots, and we got to talk to Dylan Smith a few months ago. At this point now, he's so fun, and like every time you're in a faction of this world, you're like, oh, I love these people. I want to spend more time with them. And then I'm like, hey, but what's going on with the world of men, or what's going on with the elves? And it just knows exactly, just like Peter Jackson's films knew exactly when to kind of switch over to tell the story of who haven't we seen for a little while. This series will do that, and it has great balance, has a great tone throughout, and I really respected that. I wanted to ask you guys, technically, obviously, we've spoken about how incredible the effects are. Anthony leaned over to me a bunch of times during our screening saying, this is a TV show. This is a TV show, especially with the snow troll. Phenomenal. I've, like most of you, I think, hopefully listening to this, and I know Shay and Anthony, I've been listening to the soundtrack to the show nonstop the last couple days. Bear McCreary has done something absolutely incredible here, and he's made an iconic score for a series that is built upon iconic scores. And he has his name up there with Howard Shore, who was also part of the show as the theme song composer. But it's absolutely amazing. The music is just grand, and so much of this show defines the word epic. And I know we overuse the word epic, but I don't know a bigger word to describe, what has been accomplished with the show. It's really, really spectacular.
The score is absolutely crazy. It's now my new workout score. Like, I've been going for my runs at night, and it's what I've been listening to. And I just also want to quickly touch upon Dylan Smith as well. Like, he's so just charming and lovable, and we knew that from our interview. But just to kind of have that conversation with him and see his character come to life, I'm like, oh man, you're such a good dad. Like, you're the kind of dad that you want to be as an adult when you grow up, just supportive of his daughter and wanting to make sure that she goes out and explores this world. And I mean, obviously, whenever we spoke in our interviews, which you'll get to see on YouTube and also in our podcast, everybody loved Dylan. It was like, Dylan, yeah, shots for Dylan. It's like, whoa, no, hold on, I'm not taking shots right now.
Dylan.
Like, I don't understand what's going on here. But no, the score is phenomenal, and everybody in this show is phenomenal.
Definitely. How about for yourself, Anthony? Any other standouts, from the technical side for you of the show that you were just like, that is amazing, that's incredible?
I think for me, episode 2, there is a sequence on the sea, and it's really, really, really well done. There's actually 2 sequences on the sea, one that takes place during the day and one that takes place during a huge storm. And it just gave me vibes of like Captain Phillips, not Captain Phillips, sorry. Why did I think of Captain Phillips?
Captain Phillips.
Tom Hanks, Castaway, when he's out on sea and he's dealing with the thunderstorm, and there's like a lot of like practical, but as well as CG embedded into it, and it just feels like I don't know what's real or what's not, and that's amazing.
Right?
Like, that's, you could tell in TV shows, you could tell what's real and what's not, what's in front of a green screen and what's not. With this show, there are parts where you just I can't believe it, because
it's seamless.
They shoot a lot of this on location in real places. They're not shooting it just on behind a green screen on a studio set. This is shot with real cabins and real forest and real mountains, and everything you pretty much see, other than like the glowing trees, is pretty much real. And that just says a lot about Lord of the Rings, because Lord of the Rings is such a practical and CG blend that works so well together. Like, it just works. It's not just CG, and the beauty of it is Amazon's not saying, well, let's cut the cost and make it just CG. Let's actually make these sets
give it
happen.
What it needs.
Let's make these sets happen, and if we need to elaborate more, we'll add the CG. And that's how every movie or show should be made, when it comes to this type of franchise. When it's a huge franchise like this, you don't want everything green screen because it's going to come out fake. It's going to come out terrible, truthfully. But yeah,
we had the opportunity to ask Anthony, like you mentioned right now. We had the opportunity to ask Patrick McKay and Lindsey Weber how they trained a dragon to actually appear in the show, because there's no way that was CG. Like, that was a real dragon.
Hold on a second, a dragon?
A dragon.
Yeah. It's, it's incredible. There's just so many aspects of the show that I love. I would say the only downside really to the show is that, we got to wait for the next episode now. There's a little teaser at the end of episode 2, and you'll see this from the trailers, where you're just like, oh my God, how do we get from here to that? And it's like, that's like a different show. And it just goes to show the scope that is behind this show. It's really, really phenomenal.
I kept asking myself, I'm like, how's this show going to win Best Picture, Best Cinematography, Best Visual Effects when it's just a TV show? Like, it's just, that's how mind blown this show is when it comes to what you're viewing on screen. It's like, this is Best Picture, but it's going to win an Emmy, but it should win an Oscar. It needs that Oscar. What?
Yeah.
Production?
No, it's true, though.
Production wise, what? Visual, the sound. Like, when we watched it in Culver Studios, the sound was so piercing, and it was like, you just didn't expect this from a TV show. Like,
I left with bruises. I thought I was getting beaten up during this movie just from how powerful the sound was.
What's crazy is it was just Logitech speakers that they had just placed right in front of us. That's how good the sound was. Yeah. It was a PC speaker, I believe. I was like, damn, this is good.
They made anyone who's getting a text message, it got the little sound. Do you remember that?
Oh my God.
That was a deep cut.
It's mastered in such a way that you would never expect it from a TV show. Like, this is something you would get out of an Oscar-worthy production, Like,
I'm just glad
ridiculous.
Prime Video does HDR and everything too, because like that's a major factor.
They do HDR 10, I think, not Dolby Vision. One day,
not Dolby Vision yet, but I mean, like, one day, because like I think too, here in Crave with Canada, the compression on that app hurts a lot of shows. When you watch a movie or a show that has HDRs or in 4K, like, the compression and the bit rate that it streams at, it doesn't always look the greatest. So I'm hoping, and I am sure it will look incredible when it does come to Prime Video, obviously September 1st, so you'll be able to watch it. Let's get to our final recommendations. Now, Anthony said something earlier that made me think, and I was like, okay. Anthony was saying, how could the show win an Oscar for Best Picture? And in my head, I'm like, how could we give a show a real gem? And you know what? I'm just going to throw it out there. I'm giving the show a real gem. This show is phenomenal. It is massive in scope. It is beautiful. And I truly do believe it's going to redefine what, stories look like on TV. The show is setting a new standard. It's absolutely mesmerizing. Tolkien's work, I think, it's never been more interconnected with one another, and it's just wonderful. Required watching television if you are a fan of the Lord of the Rings. If you are just a fan of fantasy or epic, or like, this is where you need to go. This is what you need to watch. This is required viewing. It's a real gem. Anthony, how about yourself?
Yeah, this is a real gem. You probably, if you've been listening to this review, you probably know how excited I am about it and how amazed I am about it, and everything that came out of this show that's just blown me away. This is definitely a real gem. This is something I don't know will ever be recreated again, just because of the production value and the amount of money that went into it. I just don't see it ever happening again. This is like one of those events in television history. We were talking about like Stranger Things being like, holy shit, this is fantastic.
Yeah.
No, that in that scale, this is even it's
that's a sitcom.
Yeah, it's a sitcom. If you are a fan of film, TV, you love fantasy, you love Lord of the Rings, this is a show. The only tragicness to it is that you could watch this on your phone, and you could watch it on an iPad. Where I feel like this should have been something you watch on a big screen, which I believe they're going to be doing a fan screening for.
They are, yes.
It's
so
today,
the
technically.
the day this review's out, you can watch a fan screening of it.
If you
got tickets.
If you have tickets, you're gonna love it. This is something hopefully one day they'll put the whole thing on the big screen. But
yeah,
I'm real gem, real friggin' gem. What's an Elvish word for amazing?
That's a great question. I
don't think
will
you speak it, man.
Oh, sorry. I only talk the dark Elvish.
Oh, that's not good. I'm gonna try and find the answer for that for you. But while I do, Shahbaz, please let us know your thoughts and your final recommendation for The Lord of the Rings: The Rings of Power.
The show gets 10 rings out of 10 from me, man.
Damn.
It is a real gem. It is so good. I love Lord of the Rings, so to see it fully realized and so in depth, it's got me really excited. I can only hope the remaining episodes continue this path forward. And from the footage that we've gotten to see about it, I can't see it dipping in quality, or I can't see it really dipping at all. I can only see this going higher and higher on the top of Mount Doom and then not jumping off. Okay. Yeah, this is gonna be phenomenal. I'm excited for everyone to see it.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to the conversations every week. Again, I'm glad that this is coming out weekly. I really hope the show just takes off and is a huge success because it deserves it. I'm just so happy to have more Lord of the Rings back in the world. It's been almost 10 years since the Hobbit trilogy wrapped up, and it's been over 20 years now since, that original trilogy of Lord of the Rings films came out and took the world by storm. And now the Lord of the Rings are back, and I think it's better than ever, and it's here to stay because we know this is going to get 5 seasons. So it's pretty amazing. Also, the Elvish word for great is, according to Google, is Kenya. So
this is absolutely Kenya.
It's Kenya.
Quinoa? Is that?
This is absolutely quinoa.
Grain? this is whole grain for sure.
Well, the elves would eat grains, right?
Yeah, they would eat grains.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. Maybe that's on brand. Thank you so much for listening to our review of The Lord of the Rings: The Rings of Power. Of course, I want to thank Prime Video Canada once again for inviting us to watch this film and be part of the release strategy for this show. As you could tell, we've been talking the last 30 minutes about it. We absolutely loved it. So it is absolutely just required watching. Check it out on Prime Video this week. You will not regret it. And of course, 2 episodes are premiering on September 1st at 9 p.m. Eastern time. And then it's going to be followed by new episodes weekly. So there's lots to look forward to. Also, go give Bear McCreary a lot of love on social. His score is absolutely phenomenal. Go listen to it. Go stream it wherever you are because it is so incredible. It is worth your time. I just have it on constantly. I'd be listening to it right now if we weren't recording and then we get copyright strikes. So I'm not going to do that. Thank you once again. Please go check out all of our incredible coverage of the show. We have a 3-part interview series out right now you can listen to. You could go listen about our trip, and you could also hear our interview with Dylan Smith from a month or 2 back now. He plays Largo Brandyfoot in the show. So go check it out. All of the links and more are in the show notes below. So make sure you look at that. And then you give us 5 stars if you like what we're doing, because we love what we're doing and we want to keep doing it for you. That was This Time with the Movie Podcast, and we'll see you next.